Why do you think someone should tune in and listen to our conversation today?
Well, I think that anybody who's interested in health will be able to learn something new about how what we choose to eat and put into our body can help us combat some of the worst diseases, but also help us achieve longevity goals all at the same time.
Dr. William Lai is reimagining the future of medicine, showing how food can prevent, treat, and even reverse disease. His research shows how the right choices can switch on the body's own healing systems and unlock new ways to fight disease and extend health.
If somebody who's listening is dealing with cancer themselves or, close to somebody who's dealing with cancer, you should know that the science is making not small incremental progress like we used to talk about. We are advancing with leaps and bounds.
William, we seem to be living in this duality right now because you're saying that there is a cure on the horizon with all this amazing immunotherapy that's coming out and all this great research. But on the flip side, we're seeing more early onset of cancer. So what's happening? What would be then the 3-4 items you'd recommend for someone that is going through, let's say, stage 3 or stage 4 cancer to put in their shopping basket?
So everyone always asks me, Dr. Lee, what are the top 3, top 5, top 10? And I can certainly tell you.
By 2030, where do you think we'll be? Do you think we're going to be in a better place when it comes to cancer, when it comes to knowledge of blood circulation, or do you think we'll be worse off?
One of the most exciting areas.
The future of longevity is being shaped in Geneva this October. The Global Longevity Summit is an intimate gathering at the Genolia Innovation Hub, running from October the 28th to the 30th, with pioneers like Aubrey de Grey, Matt Kaberlein, and Amy Killen. I am grateful to be joining as an advisor. And if you would like to be there too, you can get 10% off tickets with the code Beyond Tomorrow. Just check the description for the link. I'll see you there. Why do you think someone should tune in and listen to our conversation today?
Well, I think that anybody who's interested in health will be able to learn something new about how what we choose to eat and put into our body can help us combat some of the worst diseases, but also help us achieve longevity goals all at the same time. So it's kind of a twofer.
You've famously said that you have seen a cure for cancer or a time when cancer will stop existing. Why do you believe this?
Well, what I have actually
misquoted you, I'm sorry.
Comes from my background as a physician, where I've taken care of many people with cancer over the years, still am. And also as a cancer researcher, where I've actually seen this very steep uphill slope. Kind of the Mount Everest of medical research is to be able to try to find a successful way to help patients overcome the scourge of cancer. And when I started out in my career, as a physician and also as a researcher, that goal seemed not just far away, but elusive. We couldn't quite get our tentacles around this problem called cancer. Whatever we did, it seemed to escape. However we approached it, didn't seem to be good enough. And most of the treatments that we came up with in the earlier days, I would say, even during my career, really seemed to have side effects that were honestly undesirable and something that most people wouldn't be willing to trade off for a shot at actually having a slightly better outcome than traditional chemotherapy. So you got to realize I started my career with a kind of a fairly pessimistic outlook on whether or not we were going to be able to overcome cancer. Fast forward over 30 plus years, I've been personally involved with helping to develop cancer treatments, including those that can cut off the blood supply to cancer. You can starve cancer by cutting off a blood supply. There's now well over a dozen treatments like this that are not chemo. It's an alternative or a complement, and they're powerful treatments that can improve survival. So notch on the bedpost of something that we could do that we haven't been able to do before, and then enter the era of immunotherapy. And we'll talk about this a little bit more, I'm sure, downstream. But, our immune system is one of the most powerful health defense systems. Look, if you want to live a long time, you're pursuing longevity and you don't put immunity, good, strong immunity at the center of your bullseye, you're missing actually the big opportunity. We need a good, strong immune system because our immune system not only protects us from the demons from the outside world, the bacteria and viruses, okay, but also our immune system is like an army of super soldiers that patrol inside our body looking for bad guys, and those bad guys being cancer cells. So immunotherapy, which was just a twinkle in the eye of researchers when I started my career, now has become a reality. And the proof in the pudding, when the rubber meets the road, we actually see that in some patients who received immunotherapy, their cancer, even very advanced cancer, can actually be reversed from advanced stages to stage 0, and it doesn't come back. And so for me, what you quote me saying that, I've seen the cure to cancer, I have, to my own surprise, seen people that would have never been cured in the past, never had any hope, really, actually had their disease reversed. So for me, it's one of the most exciting aspects of being a doctor and being a medical researcher today is to see the science being translated to people in ways that are not only meaningful to the scientific enterprise, which is, obviously I'm a researcher, so I'm a geek. And when it comes to science, I want science to advance. But as a doctor, we all have this humanistic goal of helping other people, and to see people that would never have survived actually become survivors using the same approach that had been dreamed about is really kind of achieving. It's honestly, it does feel like you get to the summit of Everest. Not everybody can do it. Not everybody benefits. But we got to figure out how to get more people to the summit.
What is amazing is that when people hear this, they may think, oh, it's just a bunch of people in the Bay Area, New York and Boston that have been or received these treatments. But this is close to home for you. Your mother had stage 4 cancer and within 2.5 months basically had no cancer in her body. Is that right?
Yeah, well, so, my mother's situation is like many people who are older. She wound up having endometrial cancer, and I, out of protection of her privacy, because she's still alive and doing very well and, kind of plugged into what's going on, I want to make sure I'm appropriately respectful to her privacy. I will tell you that, she went from being told by her first oncologist, her first cancer doc, that the cancer was advanced and the treatment would be for, at her age of 80 at the time, she's 91 now, but at 80, stage 4 disease, that the treatments would be worse than the disease. And in fact, I was told to take her on a cruise while she felt well and, have one last blast with my mom. I looked this doctor in the eye. I think he's retired now. Diet, some lifestyle, immunotherapy. And in my mom's case, she, like other people that are responding to immune therapy today, went from advanced stage cancer, in her case it was endometrial cancer, to having complete disappearance of all of her disease 11 years ago. And in fact, we continued to treat her for a year, but then we stopped because there was nothing left to treat. And, it's just one of those. If you think about it like an infection, you have pneumonia, you get an antibiotic, your pneumonia goes away. What are you going to do? You're going to stop treatment. And for me, it was just such a personal relief, but also a personal triumph to be able to see the science being translated. And I think that's really the message, is that today, if somebody who's listening is dealing with cancer themselves or close to somebody who's dealing with cancer, you should know that the science is making not small incremental progress like we used to talk about. That used to be sort of the old excuse. No, we're not making that much fast. We're not progressing as quickly as we can because everything has to be done step by step. I will tell you now, with immunotherapy, we are advancing through with leaps and bounds. So if you have cancer, you haven't been told about immunotherapy, it is absolutely critical, potentially life-saving for you to have that conversation with your oncologist. Can I get immunotherapy? It's not appropriate for everyone, but I think everyone deserves a shot at asking for it.
Before we got on the call, I was speaking to my best friend, and his dad has had stage 3 lung cancer for the past couple of years. And I remember we went into a vegetable shop in London, and he was picking up all these purple coloured fruits and vegetables. And I asked him, why are you picking up like purple beetroots and then purple potatoes and all this? And he's explaining that they have an ability to reduce the onset of cancer. Could you explain to me like why that is? And also would just love to just hear your playbook. If someone was to walk into your office today with stage 3 cancer, what you'd say for them to do? And I know every single person is very different, but...
Well, first of all, I mean, I think that it's really important for anybody dealing with cancer to make sure that they go to a medical doctor, specifically an oncologist, to be able to to be properly diagnosed and properly managed. You know, for some types of cancer, there are some very, very good treatments depending on the stage of your disease, which is why early diagnosis is so important, because earlier you catch it, the more likely you're going to be able to actually beat it. So that said, you know, I think that most people fear cancer because it feels like a death sentence. If you are diagnosed with cancer, you feel like it's over for you, and whatever is coming ahead is only going to be terrible. The light at the end of the tunnel comes from our understanding that our body actually contains what you need to overcome cancer. In fact, we overcome cancer in our bodies all the time. From the time we're children to adulthood, we're always combating and preventing cancer. And this is something that a lot of people don't realize, because when you tap into your body, you can actually uncork your own inner ability. That's not to say you should avoid treatment, regular medical treatments, but it means that there's more we can actually do. So what is that more? Our health defenses. Okay, and I write about 5 of them in my book, Eat to Beat Disease, are the reason that we stay healthy. Most people think about health as just the absence of disease. How do I know I'm healthy? Because I'm not sick. Well, okay, that is true. But if you really want to operationally know how you can actually live long and live well without being sick, that's one of the primary goals of longevity. And by the way, cancer is one of these obstacles, potholes, boulders that get in the way on your highway towards longevity, right? So how do you actually steer around that? How do you avoid the obstacle? How do you find a way to minimize the damage that you might take during that journey? Okay, well, it's locked in your body, because here's the thing. What is a cancer? A cancer is really a normal cell that has become mutated, meaning normal to abnormal. The mutation, meaning that something strange has happened to it. Listen, everybody's seen the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Incredible Hulk, you know, all the Fantastic Four, all these comic book characters that get mutated, they turn different. And that difference in the body to a normal cell usually doesn't turn the cell into a superhero. It usually turns a cell into a supervillain. Okay, that's the key thing. Mutations in the body tend to create supervillains, not superheroes. Now, when you got a supervillain, it's just one cell that's a bad guy hanging out like in a quiet suburban neighborhood where everything is peaceful. The lawn is immaculate. It's a very quiet, well-groomed area. And you got a drug dealer hanging out on the corner. All right. Scruffy with a backpack full of stuff. All right. Looking very shady. That's what a cancer cell, a supervillain cell that's mutated, looks like in your body, sitting there. Okay, could be your liver, could be your brain, could be your breast, could be your prostate, could be liver, anything. Okay, these mutations can happen. We can talk about how they happen in a second. But your immune system is one of your body's health defenses, an army of super soldiers that patrols your body like cops on a beat looking for trouble. So when your immune system, healthy immune system, critical for longevity, drives by, conducts surveillance and drives by your normal tissues and sees that supervillain sitting by itself on the corner in one of your organs, what do you think it does? Just like a cop on a beat, they'll stop, they'll question it, they'll interrogate it, and if they don't like the answer, they throw it in the paddy wagon and drive it away. That's exactly how our immune system prevents cancer normally. Now, these mutations that cause cancer, they are happening all the time in our body. All right. Our adult body is made of 40 trillion cells. That's more cells than you can see in a starry night. Okay. And I can tell you that these cells are dividing, they're reproducing, copy pasting themselves all the time. And the copy pasting is really important because that's why we're still here today compared to yesterday. And that's where we're still going to be here tomorrow compared to today, because copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. Oh, cells run out of steam and then they go away. New ones that you copy pasted to take their place. More complicated, but I'm giving sort of like the simple, easy to understand approach. That copy paste is exactly where mutations can occur. When you copy paste, if you make a perfect copy, no mutation. Normal cell turns into normal cell. It's replacement. But when you have a mistake, you get a mutation. Now, what's a mistake? Think about it. If I, Julian, gave you one sentence, Mary had a little lamb, and I asked you to copy it 10 times on a word processor in a Word document, you're going to get it right because you're a very detail-oriented person. If I ask you to copy it 100 times, most likely you're going to make one or two mistakes. Thank goodness your laptop has spell check. Because before you turn it in, you're going to actually run a spell check. Oh, I caught a couple of things. Man, I didn't even notice that. That's what the body does. It will automatically correct mutations. Now, let me ask you, if I asked you to copy Mary Had a Little Lamb 40 trillion times, even with a spell checker, because that's what happens in the body to reproduce itself every day, how many mistakes do you think your body makes in copy pasting its DNA every single day? How many mistakes that are mutations that could turn into microscopic cancers do you think? Just take a wild guess.
Out of 40 trillion, I'm going to say a trillion? Is that too many?
The actual number is that the human body makes about a net of 10,000 mutations every day, because some of them that are made actually get fixed. All right. So we've little microscopic mutant supervillains that are created every day. So, patients always ask me if they get diagnosed with cancer, Dr. Lee, why did I get cancer? What did I do? What could I have done differently? Was it my genetics, or what was it that I should have done, or shoulda, coulda, woulda? All right. I try to give them the most empathetic answer that's accurate as I can. Sometimes you don't know the answer to that, but I walk away from that kind of encounter. And you know what I ask as a scientist? I ask, how come we don't get cancer more often if we make 10,000 mistakes a day? Well, look, 10,000 of these little drug dealers supervillains sitting in your body, and you've got an immune system that's patrolling the body. Every time it sees the supervillain, interrogates it, doesn't like the answer, throws it in a paddy wagon, takes it away. That's why our body has the ability to control cancer. That's why immunotherapy is such a big, monumental leap forward, because we are activating our body's own natural defenses. Now, you asked me about food and why, what can actually foods do? Well, foods can not only activate your immune system to be better cancer patrollers, okay? Give it some more ammo, add a few more soldiers, give them some special weapons, all right? That's what foods can actually do. But not only can foods activate your immune system, but they can also activate your body's other health defenses, which includes cutting off the blood supply to starve a cancer, which includes fixing the DNA that got mutated. Now you've got the road crew out there repairing the pothole, okay? It can also improve your gut health, which then lowers inflammation, which then not only helps you live longer from a longevity perspective, but also provides less gasoline, fuel for the fire that drives cancer cells to grow. And this is what we're beginning to realize now, is that if we actually focus more on activating the body's own health defenses, whether it's foods or medicines, I just talked about both in the same conversation with you, as opposed to just focusing on chemotherapy, which is, can we create a better nuclear warhead to blow things up? The war against cancer was all about killing the cancer cell. How about flipping the script to today's world to say, we're going to beat cancer by healing the body? Same thing, different tactics, but it makes it's a world of difference and actually how we approach the problem, and actually for patients to think about that as well.
Because that kindness, that loving kindness to self, I remember when I used to get ill when I was younger with fever and everything, but it's really just your body that's working amazingly to get the virus or whatever out. In terms of being back in the vegetable and fruit shop now, let's throw in, nuts, everything you could possibly buy. What would be then the 3-4 items you'd recommend for someone that is going through, let's say, stage 3 or stage 4 cancer to put in their shopping basket?
Again, I want to just double underscore that foods and any other approach should never take the place of regular medical care. Okay, you got to actually see a doctor, get an oncologist, get the accurate diagnosis, look at all your options. But the key thing is that you go to the doctor for sick care. When you go home and you stop by the food market, all right, now you actually have an opportunity to do healthcare, because the food that we eat activate our body's health defenses. All right. So everyone always asks me, Dr. Lee, what are the top 3, top 5, top 10? And I can certainly tell you 3 that I can come off the top of my head, or 5 or 10. I can tell you what were my favorites when it comes to my own preferences. But what everyone should know is that the big principle is that many of the foods that we find in the produce section, and sometimes in the middle aisle of the grocery store as well, okay, they are generally the ones that have these health defense boosting, cancer fighting properties that can help activate your body's properties to fight cancer. They tend to be whole plant-based foods, healthy fats, which includes seafood in some cases, and then what I call the beverages like coffee and tea that are out there, and then spices. So if you take a look at what you'd find entering the typical grocery store, the answer to cancer is actually all in front of you. Okay. So just push your cart in there and realize, in addition to what your doctor is going to want to treat you with, you have the opportunity to amplify, turn up the volume so that your body can actually do the job that it wants to do even better. It's not a replacement. It's an amplification. This is not food or medicine. I mean, a lot of people say, well, are you talking about alternative medicine? Absolutely not. I've been involved with drug development and for cancer drug development myself. So I know how important it is. Right treatment for the right person at the right time. But what is it that a patient can do or a person could do for themselves or a family member or a caregiver to basically help them fill in all those gaps that exist? And so that's really looking at food as medicine, or in this case, food and medicine. It's an additive thing. And so what are some of the top foods? Pick a couple from every category that have human evidence that they actually can activate your body in some way, shape, or form to make it stronger in the fight against cancer, and in fact have human evidence to lower the risk of certain types of cancer. Okay, so first of all, your leafy greens. Everybody talks about kale, so I'm going to deliberately not talk about kale. But I can tell you, like, the whole family of broccoli, broccolini, broccoli rabe, okay, those are brassica vegetables that contain natural substances called sulforaphanes that once you eat them, those sulforaphanes, these bioactives coming just in the broccoli, actually antioxidant, anti-angiogenic, cancer starving, immune boosting, gut health, inflammation lowering effects. Every bite you take starts to tip the balance of your health defenses in favor of being stronger, healthier. More power to those super soldiers that are patrolling your body. Okay, you're just giving it more ammo. Why wouldn't you do that, right? So that's broccoli. Number 2, let's talk about a fruit, pears. I love pears. In season, they're absolutely, there's nothing more I love than a juicy pear. And a peach in the summertime, pear in the fall, winter. All right, that's seasonal. You get the most polyphenols during the on season for fruits and vegetables. These polyphenols being the health defense activators. I started by talking about a pear. Not only does it have natural cancer starving bioactives like chlorogenic acid, which also is an antioxidant, which also lowers inflammation in your body, but it's got dietary fiber. The average medium-sized pear that you might get at a farmer's market or just a regular grocery store actually is about 5 to 6 grams of fiber. And human studies have shown if you are getting immunotherapy, you need your gut to be healthy. In fact, in one study that came out of the MD Anderson Cancer Center, they looked at people with melanoma getting immunotherapy, and they found that those people who ate 5 to 6 grams of dietary fiber every day extra, they lowered their mortality by 30%. Okay, there's no medicine you can add to that that would do that. Food can do that. All right. And again, I told you that average pear actually gives you 5 to 6 grams of dietary fiber, but so do many other fiber containing foods. So but I like pears, so I wanted to talk about that. What about a beverage? Either tea or coffee have their own baked in beneficial polyphenols. Tea have something called catechins, EGCG, epigallocatechin 3 gallate. I always tell people, don't worry about the tongue twisting Latin terms. Leave that to people like me who actually study it. All right. But we just know that there's polyphenols in tea that actually, when you drink tea, you're actually arming your own health defenses, raising your shields. Okay. 1 cup of tea. Well, actually, what's the dose? Actually, it's about 3 to 4 cups of tea that will actually do the trick from all the human studies. What's the best kind of tea? a lot of people actually have tea bags, and they're brewing their tea with tea bags. I encourage that you use loose leaf tea without the tea bags, because right now we're making a discovery that some tea bags are actually sprayed with plastic. And so you can shed 1 billion microplastic particles into a cup of tea with just one tea bag.
Yeah.
All right. Probably something you want to avoid, especially for those people, anybody who's watching or listening who is interested in longevity. Look, I mean, I love tea. Remember I told you 3 to 4 cups of tea, mugs of tea a day. That's not 3 to 4 billion microparticles, plastic particles you want to put in your body. So just dodge that, right? Easy. So loose leaf tea. Now, how do you get even more? How do you max out, right? So, if you're a biohacker, you're always trying to figure out, like, what do I need to do and how do I max it out? So it turns out if you want the most polyphenols out of tea, have matcha. Because matcha, when you brew tea, like with loose leaf tea or tea in a tea bag, you were just allowing hot water to draw out by diffusion the polyphenols from the tea leaf. All right. Matcha, which is a green powder, is the entire tea leaf ground to a fine silt. Okay. When you stir it, that's why it's opaque, bright green. You get the whole damn leaf. You get 100% of the polyphenols. So you want to max out your health boosting polyphenols. That's why matcha is actually good. And coffee has something else. It's got chlorogenic acid, same thing as a pear has actually, but coffee actually has it. So then the question is, again, this is what I study. Food is medicine. It's not just about the foods. You get on a pedestal and you start waving a frond of kale. That's what a barker does. Okay. I'm a scientist, so I'm actually interested in how do you actually get the most out of it. So how do you get the most out of coffee? Well, actually, you got to pick the right roast. What's the best roast for the chlorogenic acid and caffeic acid in coffee? What do you think? Do you think it's light roast, medium roast, or dark roast?
I'm going to say, because I know your study on tomatoes and cooked tomatoes are much more valuable than raw tomatoes. So I'm going to say the darker the roast, the better.
It is partly true. It turns out that light roast doesn't extract out as much polyphenols, chlorogenic acid as you can get. Roast at medium, you get a big bump. When you get dark roast, which I like the taste of dark roast coffee. I drink a lot of espresso. I prefer dark roast actually. But actually, when you go too dark, you've actually destroyed some of the polyphenols.
Gotcha.
So medium roast is what you want to go for if you're trying to max out your coffee polyphenols. So again, these are, I know I've given you a much more complex answer, but I think a more practical answer as well, right? I mean, these are things that consumers like. If you're listening to this, you probably can't remember a single polyphenol I talked about, even though I named them all. But I bet you will remember medium roast is good, matcha is good, right? And you can actually get not just regular broccoli, but you can get broccolini and broccoli rabe. You all get that good stuff. It's all choice. And that's why I think that going to that vegetable store, as you talked about your friend doing, is a really great idea. It's a great idea regardless of whether you're concerned about cancer or not. It's good whether you just want to optimize your own fitness, and especially if you want to optimize your longevity.
William, we seem to be living in this duality right now, because you're saying that there is a cure on the horizon with all this amazing immunotherapy that's coming out and all this great research. But on the flip side, we're seeing more early onset of cancer. And it seems that more and more younger people are getting cancer, and it seems to be more in the limelight. So what's happening? Are we getting a cure, but we're also getting more people suffering?
You know what? I think we don't understand everything about this very disturbing trend of seeing cancer being diagnosed earlier and earlier in people. The first cancer where this became apparent was colon cancer. Now, when I went to medical school, if you were 50 years old and got colon cancer, you were considered a really young person to get that disease. Mostly 60, maybe older people. But if you've been paying attention, many of the news reports are finding that colon cancer is being diagnosed earlier and earlier. I mean, people in their 30s, even in their 20s. I even heard of a 16-year-old that was diagnosed with colon cancer. We have no idea why that is, but it is so alarming. So this is the kind of thing that we need to be thinking about. Is there something different about the population today? Is it something that we're eating that's not so good for us, that's actually stoking and sparking these cancers? I don't know. Is it something we're not eating that we used to eat that is also tipping the balance in the wrong direction? Is this something we're doing to ourselves? Is there some activity that we're all participating in? We don't know all the answers. And I think anybody who basically, steps right up to the plate and says, well, it's because of this, I can tell you as a researcher, you got to be careful about that. We don't know what the reason for this is. Most likely, it's a combination of things. I think that, perhaps we're now finally paying the price for all these years of dumping chemicals into our environment. So just being alive today, we're being exposed to things that our grandparents weren't exposed to. Okay. I think that's a real possibility. I mean, think about the fact that you can't actually, like that we talked about microplastics. I mentioned microplastics a moment ago. It's in the air we breathe. It's in our toothpaste. It's in the tea bags. It's, we can't go anywhere without encountering plastic. Our body is not supposed to have a ton of plastics in it. Are these cancer causing? Do they cause inflammation that could trigger cancer? We don't know for sure, but we sure are looking at these things with a critical eye to say, maybe this is the reason we should be cleaning up our act. All right. Now, on a personal level, anybody listening to this, you can definitely make moves on your own that can actually help you lower your risk, make it more likely you'll dodge diseases like cancer. All right. And, these simple things that I tell people, that people say, Dr. Lee, how do I live to 100? Or how do I live to 130? I said, well, the first thing you do, you can't die of cancer or any other chronic disease that takes people out early.
Can I just add something really quickly there? William, because the longevity movement, especially, they talk about we have to, the reason why we create a solution or a cure to aging is that the 4 or 5 horsemen, as in cancer, diabetes and all that, all happen later in life. But actually, when you have early onset of cancer, then it completely rips up the script of all these aging researchers, because it's happening far sooner than you're aging or properly aging, like let's say 50 plus. And so what you're saying is really important in the longevity movement, in the aging movement as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I will actually tell you, Julian, that as a medical researcher, what I will tell you is that your chances of optimizing how long you're going to live, how long your fuse is going to burn, okay, in life, living long and well, starts way earlier than 50 years old. Probably starts earlier than you're 40, all right? So people who are living in longevity, who want it, it's never too late to start optimizing your own position in life. It's kind of like investing in the stock market or investing in life for retirement. The sooner you start depositing into your longevity bank, your health bank, the bigger that's actually going to grow for you to cash out on later on in your, in your twilight years. And so I think that researchers looking at those hallmarks of aging that occur when you're older than 50 or 60 and looking at those epigenetic changes, they're all correct. I mean, those are all happening. But the reality is that what have I told you, Julian, that, metabolic disease, diabetes, metabolic disease probably starts when you're when it becomes a problem, probably starts when you're 40. Cancer, forming your body all the time. You're probably losing control of your immune system and therefore allowing the drug dealers, the bad guys, the supervillains we talked about to hang around in the neighborhood longer, causing more trouble, probably happening. I mean, it's all happening throughout your life. It probably starts in your 30s, okay, where you want to boost your shields as much as you can. By the time you're 50 or 60 and thinking about it, there's probably a riot of supervillains already going on in your body. Good news is it's never too late to clean up your act. And so for people who are older, who are now focusing on actually raising their shields, tipping the balance in favor of longevity, most people don't think about living long until you, hit 30s. There's for all of us, you round a bend where you're going around the sun, like racing your car around the racetrack over and over, not giving a second thought to your mortality or about longevity until, maybe in your 30s. And all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, you round the bend and you're like, wait a minute, I don't want to be decrepit. I don't want to be demented. I don't want to be, all the list starts to build. And once you start creating that list, you just keep adding to it. And then it can be seemingly overwhelming. And then like somebody tells you, oh, well, actually diabetes starts at like in your 40s. And then they go, well, in that case, I'm screwed. Nope. Actually, for most things, the body is so resilient that if you actually are mindful and put your focus to it, you can turn almost every negative change back into a positive direction because of your body's health defenses.
I want to build a beautiful playbook, the longevity playbook. But of course, I do want to start with angiogenesis. And I know you speak about this on every podcast, but it's your work, your life's work, your foundation's work. So just explain the process to our listeners, and also maybe some of the key reasons why it has become such an important part of your life as well and your work.
Okay, so first of all, the term angiogenesis, which sounds complicated, is actually very simple. Angio, blood vessel, genesis, how they grow. So the field that I study, and I came out of a pioneering researcher's lab, studies how our circulation grows. And our circulation is one of the most important organs in our body because there are, unbeknownst to most people, there are 60,000 miles worth of blood vessels in your body packed under your skin into all your organs. And these are the highways and byways for the oxygen that you breathe. It's through these channels that you get the oxygen to all your tissues, your toe, your ear, your brain, your heart, every place. They're also the highways and byways to the nutrients that we actually eat. So you talk about eating, healthy. Your circulation isn't healthy. You're not delivering those nutrients to where they need to go. So 60,000 miles in our body. I just want to peel out one little small fact for people who are interested in aging well from the brain perspective. You know how many miles of blood vessels are in your brain? Take a guess, Julian. How many miles of blood vessels?
William, my guess has been so bad so far. So I'm going to, let's say 100 miles.
400 miles of blood vessels are in our brain.
Off.
So you're within striking distance. But think about that. 400 miles of blood vessels coursing through in and out of all those neurons. One of the things that we all dread, we all would give anything for, is to avoid dementia. We probably all know somebody who we observed. If you live long enough, you'll know somebody who actually has lost their memory, doesn't have good executive function, maybe is disconnected from the world. I mean, this cognitive decline is something that we all fear. When they talk about aging as a disease, that's a kind of thing that people point to. But what if I told you that, one of the most common causes of brain decline, cognitive decline, is unhealthy circulation. 400 miles, if you pock them with potholes and you damage the surface and they're not bringing oxygen and nutrients, what do you think is going to happen to your brain? And so what I study is how do you keep your circulation as healthy as possible? Now think about what that means. Blood has got to flow like water right through your arteries and your veins. Okay. Why is that important? Well, you got to glide right through your body to get everything where it needs to go. And if it doesn't glide, it's going to stick. And if it sticks, blood's going to clot. And if blood clots, you wind up having problems, whether you're blocking all the blood flow downstream. Now you wind up having like a heart attack if it's in the heart, or a stroke if it's in the brain. And here's how important it is. Have you ever gone ice skating?
Of course.
Okay. So most people have gone ice skating, usually when we're kids, right? I haven't gone on the ice in years, but let's say that you're ice skating. You know that when the ice skating session starts and you got your skates on, you go out there, that ice is so smooth, you can just get on the ice and you just keep on gliding. And in fact, if you even take off your sweater and you throw your sweater on a freshly groomed ice skating rink, that sweater will go all the way across the rink. All right. Now, after a good session of ice skating with tons of people on it, or a ice hockey game, people are really cutting the ice really hard with their blades. You get off, it's harder to skate, right? You're bumping over things, right? Now you throw that sweater on the thing, it's going to stick right where it lands. It's not going to flow. And that's why the health of the blood vessels requires a smooth lining, like an ice skating rink. That lining is called the endothelial lining. Endo meaning inside. Thelial lining is really the inside of your blood vessels. So I study endothelial cells and how they help your blood vessels stay slick and smooth and delivering everything they need to deliver. And by the way, when your blood vessels are healthy, you can now take advantage of everything else, exercise, eating well, all these other things. But if your blood vessels are not healthy, doesn't matter what else you do. There's not a chance you're actually going to be able to optimize your health. And so I study this common denominator of health. And that's why it's powerful, because if you can figure out how to keep your blood vessels healthy, it's like pulling the bow back and sending one arrow through lots of different diseases, because bad circulation impacts so many different diseases. So blood vessels, I'll tell you some interesting things about blood vessels, other interesting things people might not know. So your circulation starts within a couple of weeks in your mom's womb. So basically, when your dad's sperm met your mom's egg and you were just a ball of cells, okay, still not yet figured out, you don't have a face, you don't have a hand, you don't have a heart or a liver, first system that gets laid down, first organ system that forms is your circulation. And that's how important it is. It is the first system of tissues that actually forms in your body. And usually, by the way, for those longevity kind of geeks out there, it's probably one of the last systems that goes, okay? Like it's the last system that gives up, because when your circulation is done, you're done, okay? And that's why, for me, it's so exciting to understand how to keep your circulation healthy. What are the medicines that can help do it? What are the foods that can help do it? What are the lifestyle aspects that can do it? Your blood vessels are bad, you're going to go blind. You stand a chance of losing your vision. Your blood vessels are bad, your brain's not going to be healthy. You might have cognitive decline. Your cardiovascular system, your endurance, your muscle strength, all that's going to go. Your liver is going to go. Your lungs are going to go. You're not going to be able to get enough air. You get what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Without angiogenesis, you're cooked. And so one of the things that I work on is how to keep this healthy defense system working at its optimum.
Well, let's go into that. We've covered food. When you look at stress, when you look at exercise, when you look at potential supplementation, longevity supplements, research that's going into new supplements and new therapeutics in the market, what would you say are the, let's say, 2 or 3 most promising, most exciting ones? Let's start with reducing stress, because I'm assuming stress has quite a big impact when it comes to circulation.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. So first of all, stress, we now know from a lot of human research, stress in small amounts and small doses is actually good for us. It keeps us on our toes, right? I mean, think about it. Long, lazy days doing nothing, you just start to feel like a sloth. Okay, nothing gets you going anymore. Every day you get something new. And by the way, stress isn't always emotional stress, isn't always anger, isn't always, surprise or crisis. Little bits of stress, problem solving, even something, how am I going to squeeze enough time in a day to do this or that, the other thing? That causes a little bit of stress. These little bits of stress that challenge us help keep our body resilient. So what kind of stress is harmful? The harmful stress is the dramatic, catastrophic, unending types of stress that we actually feel that are nonstop, that sit on us like an elephant sitting on our chest. All right. That kind of stress is you can't escape from. What it does is your catecholamines, your fight or flight hormones are surging from your adrenal glands and being released in your brain big time. That kind of unending stress does not allow our body to recover. Stress has to stop to allow our body to recover. When it recovers, it becomes even more resilient. When you start putting that weight on, okay, and you don't let it go, and you can't get out of it, and you're marinated in a hormonal milieu of natural stress hormones, catecholamine, all right, epinephrine, that actually damages your body. The resilience goes down, And when it comes to your circulation, it wears down the inner lining of your circulation. It's like playing ice hockey inside your blood vessels, scuffing up the lining, making it much more likely that you're going to wind up having a blood clot someplace. And stress increases inflammation.
I would love just to go deep on that. How much of it is external stress or chronic stress from your environment? And how much of it is from childhood or potential generational? Have you been looking at that?
That's a big question. First of all, I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist. The stress area is not my area of study. I always tell people ask me questions that I can take a crack at addressing in the most intelligent way that I can. I'm a real scientist, and real scientists don't tell you they know everything. They tell you when they don't know something. So I'm just telling you, I'm not an expert in this area. However, what I will say is that we do know that we all kind of bottle up stress in our body. It's not just physical, it's also emotional and mental. There is mental wellness, and then there's a continuum that goes to being unwell mentally, all right, in the same person. And then there's the environment. Because if you live in a calm environment, you still might be stressed because it's hardwired in you, okay, bottled in you. But if you are living, even a calm person has a hard time staying calm in a stressful environment. I mean, think about it. When you go into a restaurant or a bar or a club, it's really noisy. It immediately stresses you out. You immediately feel different because the environment might be fun. It is stressful to be in there. And then there's sort of generational stress, which you bring up, which is really interesting. So this has largely been studied in animals, but it correlates with people as well, where the stress of the parent somehow is communicated into, and it lasts in the next generation and the generation after that. And I think 7 generations following in mice, you wind up, if you stress shock the mom, 7 generations still feel the trauma of the cellular trauma of that. I don't know about the mental state of a rat, of a rodent, but, and that to me is pretty profound, because think about it, maybe your parents and my parents had it pretty easy, but their grandparents might have been through the Great Depression, and their grandparents before that through a war, and then before that, the plague, so you think through all these generational stresses. It's amazing that we're actually as balanced as we can be today. So I think the good news is that we all do have largely the ability to actually nurture our own resilience and to try to do as much as possible to lower the stress around us.
The reason why I'm really fascinated about that question and the answer as well is my parents both went through civil war, and my grandparents all went through famine and civil war. And so it's been this recurring pattern for many generations. And so when you look at angiogenesis and when you look at the risk of cancer and all that, it's just the question of you could be going to the vegetable shop and eating all the right stuff, but are you actually getting to the core issue, which could be that at a cellular level, you still have that trauma there?
Yeah, it's true. Absolutely true. We're all probably carrying the fallout, the knock-on effects of whatever our parents and grandparents went through. But that actually just doubles down the rationale of boosting our own immune system. If the odds are already stacked against us because of what our parents might have gone through, our forefathers might have gone through, well, you know what? I would say double down on raising your shields.
Love
that. That's why you should do it even more.
Yeah.
Don't wait for trouble to strike. All right. Just go ahead and do it now. And I think this is a very important message for people that are interested in longevity, because it's become quite a enterprise out there where people are coming up, as you say, with new supplements and new devices and new measurements. And I think that's all great, that there's so much innovation going on in the space. But at the end of the day, we want to live long and we want to live well. Just need to be aware the answer isn't outside of us. It's not something the answer isn't something you order and buy and put on or activate. It starts with us inside our body. And so please don't look beyond your body at the beginning and just ignore it. more answers are inside us than we can actually get from the outside. And I think we largely untapped, which is really the good news, because we all start with what our own capabilities are. And diet and lifestyle are things that all of us have control over.
Amen to that. I said amen, and then I was thinking, what do we talk about next when it comes to angiogenesis? And I was thinking supplements, but that's something you put in the body. But what else can we do then to reduce or increase circulation in our bodies? Yes, supplements. It'd be interesting to hear your opinion on things like metformin and maybe longevity supplements, but then also things that we can do naturally as well.
Well, I'll tell you that, your blood vessels actually do well when you exercise. So just kind of like a road, if you don't drive on it, the cracks will form. But actually roads participate with the cars. Road actually tends to do better when you drive over it periodically. Think about those country roads or, beautiful locations along these cliffs. If they're never driven on, the roads actually don't maintain themselves very well. So I would say exercise is a great way of getting that blood to flow, getting the muscles to release cytokines and other factors that talk to your blood vessels and help them stay healthier. And when you're growing new muscle, by the way, you need to grow new blood vessels to support that muscle. Now you're getting fresh new circulation to your body, right? So that's a good thing. So something as simple as exercising can be helpful. And by the way, you don't have to hire a trainer and train for a marathon to be able to get blood vessels to grow. Even brisk walking can actually improve blood flow, and not just to your biceps and your quads, but including to your brain. All right. And that's really what we're really looking for at the end of the day. You want the whole package to be good. So that's one simple thing that you can actually grow. You can help to maintain good blood vessels. The other things I'll tell you is there's some things you can avoid to actually prevent damage to your blood vessels. We talked a little bit about microplastics. Now studies we're still not 100% sure what is the damage that can result from microplastics, but I don't think we need to dismiss their importance. When it comes to blood vessels, a couple of really important studies recently have shown people who are highly exposed to microplastics, the plastics stud the lining of their blood vessels, get caught in the walls of the blood vessels. And those are the people who wind up having more cardiovascular problems, which are due to blood vessels forming blood clots, like I talked about earlier. Okay. So in fact, a 4-fold increase in the risk of stroke, for example, or a heart attack. That to me is a wake-up call. So what are the things that we can do to avoid? Let's try to avoid plastic. How do you do that? Simple things that I would tell anybody can actually do. Stop using, and this is what I've done. I'll just tell you what I've done, okay? Because I don't think this is a proscriptive thing. I no longer use plastic plates. I no longer use plastic utensils. I no longer drink out of those red plastic cups that you find at all these events. All right. I don't use tea bags anymore because I don't know which ones have plastic or not plastic. I don't buy beverages. Don't drink bottled water out of a plastic bottle. All right. I'll drink it out of glass or of a thermos that I get out of filtered water, but I will not actually drink out of those. I used to drink it all the time. Stay hydrated, right? You go to the beach, you go to a concert, you go to a sporting event. What do? You get some water. I don't do that anymore. So there are things throw out your plastic leftover containers, all right, that used to be clear, and after you wash them a few times, now they're opaque. Guess what's happening? That plastic is shedding. That's why you can't see through it anymore, all right? Use a glass container. The top can be plastic, but make sure that the main part in contact with your food is in plastic. And I really try to avoid food that's packaged in plastic. Go to the store next time, all right, or check in your grocery cart when you're by the cash register, and just realize how much of our food is actually packaged in plastic. So I try to just be aware of that and cut that down, because I know that cutting down or cutting out everything I can is going to be helpful to my circulation.
Let's just go a bit deeper into that, because again, I think about that every time I make a choice of buying a plastic bottle or whatever. But the reality is, I think I've heard from you that they found microplastics in breast milk. And so is there any way of escaping, or is there it's just about trying to cut out as much as possible?
You know what? Listen, I think that the horses out of the barn on this one. I think that 70, 80 years of generating plastics, spewing plastics in the environment, dumping it into the sea. A recent study actually showed that prolific source of microplastics is car tires driving on the road. They are just breaking down, and then you're driving fast and spewing with this tire, just spewing it all in the air, and we're breathing it. I mean, think about, just how many cars are on the road. So look, I don't think people should become freaked out about it. But I do think you should know that, if there's one takeaway from our conversation today is that, look, your circulation is really important. You want as much blood flow to your organs, especially your brain, if you're looking for longevity. So anything you can do to tip the balance in your own favor is a good thing to do. And one of those things, I think, is to be mindful that we know microplastics are around. So just cut down on the things that are going to be a problem. And, we got to deal with the rest of it. There's some things we can't change, but to change the things you can, and then live with the things that you can't, and then move on to the next thing that you can do to optimize your health and longevity.
What about supplements? I know we've talked a bit about longevity supplements like metformin and a few others. Any that you would strongly recommend?
You know what? I'll tell you what my philosophy is about supplements. The word supplement refers to topping off. And I think that you can get most of those micronutrients that supplements try to do just by eating a really good, diverse, balanced meal with high quality foods. That said, a lot of people don't eat that way. And there are some things that it's hard to get enough of from your food alone. What are some of those things? Okay, vitamin D. Very hard to get enough vitamin D from your diet alone. Not that many foods can naturally contain vitamin D. Omega-3 fatty acids found in seafoods. Okay, most people, even people who live by the sea, don't generally eat enough seafood to actually get high levels of omega-3 that have been shown to be, important for health. Healthy bacteria, probiotics were invented hundreds of years ago because you know what? We may not have all those bacteria running in our body, in our gut all the time because our gut health comes and goes. We know that. So probiotics are something that are useful to stock up your gut's healthy bacteria. Those are just a few examples of things that are actually that I think are useful. And those are some of the supplements I actually take myself. Now, you mentioned things like metformin. That's a pharmaceutical. That's not a supplement. And while there's some pretty compelling evidence on metformin, I think it's hard to make a universal declaration that this is actually something that everyone should take. And I say that pretty generically about anything that's a pharmaceutical. A pharmaceutical really should be done, even if you really want to do it. I mean, make sure you do it under the supervision of your doctor, because most pharmaceuticals will have an effect, but they'll also have side effects. And you want to make sure you don't, as somebody who isn't medically trained, wander into that side effect territory and then not know what happened.
A lot of biohackers, they put plenty of sea salt in their morning, let's say, water. And you've spoken a bit about sodium being an issue when it comes to angiogenesis as well. Am I doing the right thing every morning and putting healthy sea salt into my water?
Okay, I'll come at this in a couple of ways. First of all, if you really like the taste of salt in your morning water, go for it. I think that, life is for the living. You should enjoy salty water if you like. I'm not a big fan of that, so I don't do it. But is there a health reason for it? I think if you stay relatively hydrated and you're otherwise a healthy person, you don't need to put extra salt into your water. Now, let's talk about the fact that, a large percentage of people living in modern westernized nations already have too much sodium because our foods, ultra processed foods, restaurant foods, is packed with sodium, salt. Why? Because salt tastes great. Food manufacturers know you throw some salt in there, it's going to make it really, really tasty, more addictive. Same thing as restaurants. I encourage people, if you haven't seen this already, next time sit at the bar where they're cooking behind it or a chef's table, or ask to go into the kitchen for a peek. I like to cook myself, so I'm always interested in that kind of thing. But watch people, at the grill or at the counter when they're adding things, sometimes they'll throw a huge amount of salt on there. It does make the food taste good, but salt, high levels of salt in our body, actually damages your endothelial lining, that lining inside blood vessels. And that's why high salt leads to hypertension, high blood pressure, why hypertension is linked to stroke and heart attack and rhythm problems and all kinds of other issues. And so, like everything in moderation is probably fine. And if you're younger and have otherwise healthy, you can easily handle the sodium. You got kidney problems, you might have a problem with sodium. So again, I don't think salt is a necessary move to make. And I'll also tell you something, coming out of the sea, that's a problem, and it's not just the sea. I read this through a research study that among many different types of salts that have been studied and compared, one of the highest levels of microplastics is found in Himalayan pink salt. How did microplastics get all the way up there? No idea, right? So I would just say I use salt in moderation to make my food taste good when I'm cooking. I don't encourage, as a physician, people to, just use it deliberately as a health measure. If you are hyponatremic, which is the medical condition of having low sodium, you will need, your doctor will figure it out. You will need actually to have some kind of treatments for that. But adding salt to your morning water or anytime, do it for taste. This is why I asked you, do you enjoy it? Do it for taste. If you like it, go for it. Just don't do it too much and don't do it too often. It's not really a longevity hack.
We've talked about cancer, we've talked about longevity and how angiogenesis kind of links between both of those. William, I want to go into your crystal ball. By 2030, where do you think we'll be? Do you think we're going to be in a better place when it comes to cancer, when it comes to knowledge of blood circulation, or do you think we'll be worse off?
Well, 2030 is not that far away. You're only talking about 5 years from now. I would say cancer research is advancing so quickly that, the environment will look completely different in 5 years, and the frontiers should be even more exciting than they are now. I will tell you one glimpse, because I actually work on those frontiers, to tell you, one of the most exciting areas, and I know vaccines are controversial because it's become politicized, but I can tell you that, there are efforts now being made to develop a way to vaccinate yourself against cancer. Amazing. Nobody wants chickenpox. Nobody wants shingles. Nobody wants hepatitis. Well, imagine a future in which we can be vaccinated against cancer. Unbelievable, like how awesome that would actually be. And by the way, this also applies to people who, and may even apply first to people who already have had cancer and gotten over it. What if you could vaccinate yourself against your own cancer so it doesn't come back? Jaw-dropping, right? Like, I think this is what's on the horizon, this kind of thing, what's on the horizon. I think that, the idea of foods that can amplify your host response, your body's response to help you fight cancer, that's going to be way more advanced in 5 years. It's already quite advanced now, but most people don't know about it. 5 years is going to be much more well-known. I'm working in that area as well, obviously. And I think we're probably also going to be wiser about what we should cut down and cut out and just take those common sense steps. I mean, if you look at the generational things that are going now, right? The people who have been around the longest, the 50s and 60s and 70-year-olds, all right? They were the ones that were growing up in the 50s and 60s and 70s. That was like the heyday of ultra processed foods and not caring about the environment and using, putting oil on your body to sunburn in order to get a tan. Like, okay, that generation dealing with a lot, like the legacy of the lifestyle that was thought to be great back then. Now look at the younger generation. Look at the people who are even before teenage years, but definitely teenagers. If you talk to a bunch of teenagers, they will tell you they care about what they're eating. They're thinking about their protein intake. They're thinking about whether they're actually having enough greens and vegetables and having balanced, diverse diet. They even have heard about probiotics and the microbiome. So I think the other thing that's happening over the next half decade or so is we're going to actually have more and more people generationally entering into adulthood and the workforce that are going to actually be in the decision maker seat that's going to influence how society operates and what's available to us.
As a researcher, as a scientist, as someone who's immersed in this space, you've talked a bit about that technology. But by the way, when you talking about the vaccine, is that gene therapy?
No, it's actually, well, there's different ways of approaching it. It's really taking bits of a tumor, finding out how to use that to train your immune system so that you would train your immune system against cancer. So it's like taking a photograph of the drug dealer, the supervillain sitting in the corner of the neighborhood, and bringing it right to the headquarters of the super soldiers and passing that picture around saying, hey, you know what? When you set out there to patrol the neighborhood, look out for this guy.
Yeah.
They're out there.
Sorry, just getting a bit emotional here, but going back to my best friend's father, when you look at what's happening over the next few years with all the amazing technologies that are coming to market, apart from this vaccine, is there any that you're really excited about that, again, it's not about giving too much hope, but saying, look, we're just around the corner of so many millions of people having...
Yeah. Well, look, immunotherapy is here and it's going to be here to stay. Somewhere between a half a dozen to a dozen treatments that are already approved and available around the world. There are hundreds of more in the pipeline. I can tell you that this is the direction from which cancer cures are going to come from. We're already seeing individuals who were in previously no hope, no win situations being able to have their disease reversed and overcoming it and coming out on the other side well. So it's already happening. So I think in 5 years, just keep looking for this area. Like if there's gold in them, there are hills, just keep following that because there's even more that's buried that we haven't seen yet. So I think that's something that should be exciting to anybody, even if you have never thought about cancer before. Just realize that, that this scary word now actually is having some good solutions coming for it. And by the way, it was 100 years ago, if you had pneumonia, that was a death sentence. Today, not a big deal to treat it.
William, thank you so much. Just to finish off, I know you talk a lot about your Mediterranean diet. Well, I'm Mediterranean, you're Asian. So next time, hopefully we'll be in person and we can go for a hummus and a dumpling mix or something afterwards for some lunch or dinner. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
If you want to know what tomorrow has in store like I do, you definitely want to listen to our recent episode where I talked to Peter Diamandis about a future where we could live forever. Thank you so much.